Hey everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live right here, Monday, Motion Mondays. We're hanging out here with Josh Quillin. Josh, how you doing?
What's going on, Alex? I'm great. It's fantastic. Good Monday.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we have an exciting stream for everyone here today, and thank you for joining in on the chat. Uh, hello to everyone. I gotta get my chat pulled up here. I'm not sure what just happened there, but hello to everyone.
Yes.
It's Monday, okay? So, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Adobe Live on YouTube as well as over on Behance and Instagram. And today we are hanging out with Josh Quillin, who has been in the video industry for, he says 19 plus years. I'm going to go ahead and just give him credit and say 20 years. Uh, and Josh and I actually have a long history. We used to work together at GoPro, and then that was a long time ago. But over the years, we've still worked together, contracting together, and just collaborating. But Josh is insanely talented. He knows a lot of stuff. And today we're going to be talking all about tips and tricks inside of Premiere. And we'll dabble with dynamic link over in After Effects as well. A little bit about me. I am also a video editor, video shooter, and doing all the things. I run a studio up here in Bend, Oregon, just as Josh does down in Los Angeles. And the name of his company is Fableland. What else could we say about Josh? Josh, why don't
I
you tell
don't
us a
know.
little
Just
bit
keep
about
going.
yourself?
This is great. Just keep going. I'm enjoying the compliments coming my way. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, Alex and I have known each other for, a lot longer than I probably actually understand. God, when did we meet? 2012, 2013, a long time now. Uh,
Yeah.
Both worked at GoPro. We worked together a lot. I am now in LA. Partnered up with a business partner, and we started a company called Fableland, which I'm assuming you can see on the screen here. Um, we're just a small, like, boutique production house here in LA. So we do a lot of commercial work, advertising, episodic work, some TV stuff, a couple of feature documentaries, that kind of stuff. Pretty exciting. Everything's in-house. We have our little network of editors. Use Adobe every day, almost every single product, every single day. Without it, we would not function. Yeah, this is exciting. Great to be here. We're gonna go over some cool little tips and tricks, just things that we do to save a couple seconds here and there that over the length of an edit will save you a lot of headache and hopefully a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for this stream because there are a lot of little nuances that a lot of people don't know, including myself sometimes. I learn from you and I learn from others, and it's fun to share that information. Do you want to call out? So you can follow Josh over at official J Quillen on Instagram. Also, there is a correction to the website, your website, which actually isn't Josh Quillen anymore, but instead it is fableland.studio.
That it is.
So go check out his work. He's a great guy. So what we're talking about today, we're going to be deep diving into all those tips and tricks. More specifically, we're going to talk about how to apply motion blur in Premiere, which is cool, dynamically linking comps, and sub busing for more efficient audio exporting. And then, Josh, why don't you just give us a quick overview of what we're going to be walking through, and then I'll let you kind of take the lead on it.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, those three things plus a heck of a lot of other stuff. I have this huge litany of notes of just trying to think of stuff that I use every single day that to me is just second nature. I don't even think about using it. So trying to write all that down and go, no, wait, what did I just do? Oh yeah, I've been doing that for like 6 years. That would be a good thing for people to understand. We're gonna go through all that. I threw together an edit really quick. Here, this is some footage for an upcoming sequel documentary to a film we did oh God, 6 years ago now. The pandemic kind of threw the sequel forward a little bit in time. So this is going to come out in about 2 years or so, hopefully, fingers crossed. So I threw together an edit really quick that has a bunch of things we're going to be talking about, and we'll go over that in a little while. Um, but yeah, you can see we've got a audio track mixer with a bunch of sub busing and channel mapping, and we're gonna go over some graphic stuff and how to do a lot of things that you would normally do in After Effects that you can actually just do inside of Premiere, which is super cool, including adding motion blur to like moving graphics, which I know a lot of people are like, you can't do that in Premiere. Yes, you can, and it's super
Yeah.
handy, and I use it all the time, especially for corporate work and things where you just need something to like slide off screen, but you want to add a little bit of motion blur, a little bit of easing, super easy. You can all do that all inside of Premiere without having to, double track between two different programs. So cool. Yeah. Do we just want to jump into this and get going?
Yeah, and now that I have fixed my full screen issue on my other monitor over here, I do see the chat up, and then hello to everyone in the chat. Keys, yes, the stretching swoosh sound in the intro. I don't know who made that, but we'll give credit where it's due. And hello to Jack, our moderator. And thanks for joining in. So as this goes, if you are new to the Adobe Live stream setup, what we're doing here, it is a community collaborative effort. So if you have questions along the way, comments, or just want to touch up or find out something that you might have missed at the start, drop your questions into the chat, and myself and Josh will try to answer that as best as possible. And with that, Josh, I think it's time to take it away.
Yeah, dude. So 100%. I kind of want this to be a chat between everybody. So, I've got a list of things. If there's anything that anybody in the chat is like, oh, there's this other thing that I do, chat it. Like let's all like figure out the best ways to use these pieces of software together. Let's go ahead and just play this edit back real quick here that I threw together. We can kind of see what I've done, and then we'll pick it apart and go over some tips here. Let's go ahead and turn it real quick. Let's go back, turn that up.
I also feel like I should mention, just because I know Josh on a personal level as well, that Josh has an immense love for Halloween and theme parks. And it blows my mind. So if you're into that world, this is your guy. And I mean, all of this looks amazing already. This is all stuff you've shot?
This is all stuff I've shot. This is all for the next documentary coming out on Amazon in a couple years. So this was all last year. And what's crazy about all this, just to get nerdy real quick, none of this is at like a professional establishment. These are all like that's this guy's house. So like this is his driveway in
Wow.
Riverside, California. This California theater opening is on somebody's front lawn. Like these are all at people's homes, basically. This is their front lawn. And they create these massive haunted attractions, and it's insane, and I love it, and I'm a nerd for it. Like this is their driveway. You can see this is the concrete in the floor from their driveway.
That's so impressive.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Cool.
That's like next level decorations.
Oh, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. If you're in the LA area, these guys do this stuff every year. They're all over. There's probably 40 of these. They're called home haunts. They're all over. Definitely over Halloween. Check out some of this stuff because it's wild. It's absolutely insane. Cool. So where should we start? Let's start with creating a sequence, actually. So I have a couple of sequences here, but let's start and create a new one. So for those, we'll go super basic here. If you've never created a sequence before, you go down to this new item button here, and you click it, and you click sequence. So I have a custom sequence here set up, but I want to show, I guess we can start with the audio stems because this is the beginning of setting up a sequence. So to preface this real quick, if you've ever done like corporate work or commercial work and you've had to export multiple audio stems, say like a dialogue track, a music track, and a sound effects track separate from your final mix, it can be kind of a pain in the butt unless you are creating like a multi-channel sequence and potentially using submixes and actually mapping these things, different tracks of audio to different audio channels. And there's a really easy way to set that up inside of Premiere. I have a preset set up because I kind of only edit this way now. It's just super handy. But if you've never
love presets, so
presets are amazing, and we'll create a preset. I'll show you how to create a preset in just a second as well. But
yes,
if you've never if you've never done this before, easy way to do it. Like all this footage is 1080p. I think everything's at 30. Actually, no, some of the stuff was at 24. So let's create a 1080p 23976 sequence. We're just going to click on that. Now this is only for video settings as well. So like if you look down here into the information area in the description, you'll see it says mix track type stereo right here. So we need to be multi-channel. So if we go into tracks up here at the top and we see mix stereo here, we can change that to multi-channel. You can also change this to 5.1 if you wanted a 5.1 surround sound mix or just a mono track, but we're going to go multi-channel. And then right now, this sequence is going to be created with 4 audio tracks. That's fine. I don't necessarily always use that. I will usually use either a cam or a dialog box. So we'll say VO, we'll name this out, and then music, I will usually put under my VO. And then a lot of times what I'll do for basic corporate stuff is then just other stuff, sound effects, things like that will go down at the bottom. So we'll just create 2 tracks of sound effects. There we
So
go.
we're just going through kind of presetting every track that you
Setting
would
every
later
track.
just put each one of those, sound effects goes on sound effects and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. And actually, that should be 2. So,
Oh, we have another Joshua in here, and he also likes getting spooky. So
oh, weird.
maybe it's
Okay,
a Josh thing.
maybe. I wonder if I know this person. Probably. So, I highly suggest naming your track names. Don't leave them audio 1, audio 2, audio 3. Once you get into like 10 different tracks of audio, it's going to get really confusing and super messy. And I highly suggest just being a bit, you know, neat with your editing. Like just be that sort of highly organized person when you edit. It will pay dividends in the long run. Um, so these are all standard track types here, right? So we can change them to 5.1, adaptive, mono for like, VO, we're probably going to do mono, but I'm going to leave everything at standard here. And then this is the big one here. So output assignments. There's a couple ways to do this. So if we click output assignments, you see we have tracks 1 and 2, but there's no other tracks. That's because here, number of channels is only set to 2. We can change this to 32 if you wanted 32 channels of audio. We don't need that. What I want to do is I'm actually going to choose 8. The reason why I'm going to choose 8 is because I'm going to leave channels 1 and 2 as like a master mix. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 and 8. The reason why they're paired is they're stereo. I'm going to leave those as my breakouts for VO, music, and SFX. If that
Mhm.
makes any sense. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And just to pause real quick. So Keys is saying the splitting of video and soundtracks is also useful if the sound goes on to a mastering studio. Yes. And I would say yes. And that's kind of what we're doing. But Josh, what's your answer?
um, yeah. So like just if you're sending this off to like another third
Yeah.
party,
Yeah. So I think,
yeah, absolutely, 100%.
yeah, I think that's exactly kind of why we're doing this because maybe someone is mastering the sound in another program or they just want all individual stems and you want to export it nice and quick and you don't want to have to go through every single individual track. So what
Exactly.
Josh is doing is kind of setting it up ahead of time to get that
And
going.
it also is super helpful. Like I know you've done Alex a lot of corporate work like this, where you'll work on a project or somebody's worked on a project, and then a year and a half later, you get a call of like, hey, we want to use footage from this project, but we only want the dialogue, or we need to change the music on this export. But it was somebody else's project. You may or may not know where the Premiere Pro file is. If you do know where the Premiere file is, maybe a bunch of the raw footage is missing. So it's just
Mhm.
getting all that stuff relinked or reorganized can be kind of a pain. So doing things like this, you can actually export. What I do is I export a ProRes file as like an archive file, and in that single file are all of my tracks split out. So if you bring that one
Yep.
file into Premiere, I now have stems automatically. I can just turn on and off whatever I want, delete what I want, and you're good to go. Super easy, ready to go. And this is the way you set that up as well.
Which,
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also worth noting like multiple split tracks isn't available in every single export format.
It's
Um,
not. It's not. Yeah. So like
yeah.
H.264 does not have it. That'll just do your like a main mix. So that's why I was saying I do a QuickTime 422 or a
Mhm.
wave. You can export all audio channels as individual files basically if you do a wave, which works really great if you have a client who just wants the individual audio files, which I have many who do. Um, it's that I find this way just to be a little easier. You don't have to solo a bunch of tracks and then okay, those are my sound effects ones, export wave. Can it let me solo some music ones or send everything into just to be batched and exported later. You can just do it in one go. Super easy.
Yeah, 100% agree. And
Uh,
hello to the best over on YouTube. Joshua is it is definitely a Joshua thing for spookiness. So noted, noted. I love this.
I was gonna say if you look up here, there's some more spooky theme park stuff up there too. Not the Great Movie Ride. That's a deep cut Walt Disney World attraction, if anybody knows what that is. Okay, where was I here? Okay, yeah. So Let me cancel this and I'll re-click on this. So under VO, if we click on output assignments, you get this track output channel assignments box. And you can see it's currently set to 1 and 2. So we're going to leave that checked because we want everything to be sent to channels 1 and 2 because that's our master track. But we're going to leave channels 3 and 4 as just VO. So we'll check those and hit OK. And then under music, we want 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 because 5 and 6 is going to be our music. Turn off 3 and 4, right? We don't want it to actually put audio on those channels. And then
Mhm.
SFX 1 and 2 are both going to be 7 and 8. So we're going to put them into the same set of channels.
And when we look at those tracks there, if you could pop open that window again, so you have that 1 and 2 there,
Yep.
and that actually track 1 and 2, or is that
Oh,
left
these are
side, right side on track 1?
No, these are channels. So you have tracks,
Perfect.
our audio tracks up and down like on our timeline, and then we have
Hmm.
audio channels, which would be like where you're listening through, right? So like channels 1 and 2, channels 3 and 4, channels 5 and 6. And you could output, let's say you were in a studio, you could have monitors that are only monitoring channels 3 and 4, or monitors that are only monitoring the music on channels 5 and 6. And once we get into the sequence, I'll show you, you can actually turn on and off those specific channels for monitoring, which is super handy in cases like the edit we have at the bottom here, where I have 3 layers or 3 tracks of sound effects. If I just want to hear the sound effects track, we can actually just turn that on and monitor that super quick inside of Premiere because it's set up this way. Um,
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
yeah, super easy. And then I'll hit OK there. Now you can also, if you see this little plus button here, you can add tracks if you wanted to add a bunch more tracks, but we could also add submixes. So a submix is where we can actually take our individual tracks, send them to a submix, and then that submix we can link to specific audio channels. That's the way I've done it in the project that you just saw, the Halloween 2023 project. Not 100% necessary to do that this way, but you can if you want to. I'm not going to set this up like this. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to keep it
Yeah.
simple. Um,
So, uh, oh, sorry. Go ahead if you have anything else here, but then I have a couple little follow-up questions so we make sure that everyone in the chat's kind of
yeah,
understanding
for
what's
sure.
going on. Hmm.
Also in this new sequence area here, when you're setting up this sequence, you can also pan left and right. So let's say, you wanted this VO to be a mono track, but you knew it was recorded with all audio on the left, and that's the way you record, and you want a preset for that, you can just pan that over to the left. And now this is mono all the way to the left. That's where the VO will be. I'll show you how to, oops, I did not mean to hit OK there. Hang on a
And
second. Bring this back
yeah.
up. So I did not. Um, Hang on, I just threw myself off. Here we go. Yeah, so if you want to set this to like a mono track and pan left to right, I'll show you how you can set that on the clip level or actually in your bin, and you can just tell your audio be left, be right. If you have a stereo track with, say, like 2 levels of audio, say like a shotgun recorded on the right and a lav on the left in a stereo track or something like that. That's what this would be good for. Cool. So pretend this is still set up correctly, and I didn't I didn't erase everything.
Yep.
Once you were done, you can actually just go down here and hit Save Preset and give it a name and description, hit OK, and then that preset will show up under this custom
Mm,
folder
perfect.
instead of your
And
sequence.
that's all. And that's not even just for audio, but also
For
any
video,
sequence you make.
yeah, you can set up all kinds of stuff. So 100% customize everything, and it'll show up in this custom set.
Awesome. So let's touch on a couple of things. We talked about kind of a lot right there, and we got a little technical nerdy.
Yeah,
So we talked about making a new sequence and then setting multiple audio channels so that when you export it, it's not just, your ProRes file and then one audio channel. It's going to be your ProRes file and maybe 4 different tracks there that show up that you can have. Basically, what you're doing is kind of pre-programming them to be, hey, this is going to be sound effects. This is going to be all your voiceover. And then so if you send that off to another house or somebody else to work on, they can just individually toggle tracks without you having to export every single stem individually.
exactly. 100%.
And if you pop open that window again, I just wanted to call attention to like some of those really important things. So we have the new sequence there.
This
And
you're talking about the channel
yep,
segments window?
yep. And the things you touched on there, I believe, were setting the mix to multi-channel, setting your number of tracks,
Yeah, so number of channels.
number of channels, sorry.
Yeah.
And then from there, you're mapping each one individually
Yep.
and save sequence at the bottom.
Correct. And then track
Perfect.
name, I would highly suggest
Yes,
changing your track
definitely.
name. So whatever you guys need, customize it at your will.
Now,
Uh,
what if you already have a sequence made and you're doing this afterwards? How would you get to that?
can do that. Hang on, let's see. Do I do I have one not set up? Okay, here we go. So I've got this color sequence here because I'm gonna show you a cool color trick in a little while. I've got this sequence set up here. You can actually go into sequence settings. I believe. Is this how you do it? I don't remember the way I've done this way. Oh, that's
So
what it is. So here, I believe we can set. No, you know what? I don't remember. Why
I
don't I remember
don't
to do that?
know if you can, to
I
be
don't think
honest.
you
I'm
can.
not sure if it'll let you change that after the fact.
You can.
So a lot of times what I'll end up having to do if I have a project is I'll just create a new sequence with those mapped out, and then I'll copy and paste kind of everything over.
Yeah, that's the way I've always done it. I've set this up so long ago. I've never actually gone from a non-setup track to a setup track without.
You
Yeah,
can go, yeah, I mean, you have your track mixer up, but I don't think you can actually map things that way. I don't
no,
recall.
because it's not set
Um,
up as a
However, this is the community environment, so if somebody does have a
yeah,
solution to
that would be
that,
interesting to know.
let us know in the chat. But let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. What do we
Yeah,
got?
see, because if you look at here, if you go into your sequence and you click into property, or not properties, if you click into sequence settings, the channel format and number of channels is grayed out. So you're not able to change any of that here after the
Hmm.
fact. So if there's a way to do that, let me know because I would love to know that. Um, I don't know. But let's jump back into here. Real quick, I want to touch on having submixes because I mentioned that that's the way this sequence is set up. So if you notice here in the track mixer, which if you've never seen this track mixer or it's not up for you, because usually default is just this audio clip mixer,
Hmm.
you can go into Windows and turn on your audio track mixer that way.
Boom. Perfect. Do
Um,
you do you have one of these exported already? Like, do you have a ProRes file that you
I
can just
do.
drag in and we can visually see that there's actually multiple
I do,
tracks
and
on
I
it?
think this might be it. Yeah, so this is one of them here. So this submix.mov
Oh,
here
perfect.
is something I
Yeah.
exported. So if you see, if I drag this onto here, there are multiple levels of audio. And this is the master file, and then we have our VO, music, and SFX, all individually, laid out here. So I could literally just go, hold, what is this, hold option, click to delete. Then I could delete the main mix if I wanted to, and delete the music, and now I have it, just the SFX and the audio if I wanted to change the music.
And actually, your audio is coming in very low. So could we turn
So
up the
it's,
master track a bit? Yeah, we'll get it up to like, yeah.
is that better
Oh,
there?
yeah, it still sounds pretty low, but it's okay. We can still talk over it. Could be a streaming thing going
That's
on
probably
here.
something to do.
But
Um,
yeah, I like that. And then if you didn't want to delete it too, you could also just
you can also
alt
just,
click on it and then unenable. Yep.
yeah, just like that, which the,
Which, how did you do that? What was the hotkey? See,
yeah,
we're on the same page here.
this
Trying
is
to
one
give
of those.
out all the quick tips.
Yeah, so I would suggest learning hotkeys. That is Shift Command E on a Mac. So Shift Command E is this like just on and off, enable, disable. I use this so often.
Oh yeah, I use that probably more than any other thing in Premiere.
It's extremely handy. That's a definite time saver for sure. And then
Also,
like,
also another little tip for anyone who's just kind of new to Premiere. So right now, Josh, if you were to click, I think you have synced selection on. So if you were to just click on the video section, it would highlight everything, correct? So how did you quickly just select just that track? What'd you do?
so if you hold Option on a Mac, you can individually select tracks.
Yes, exactly. So holding that button and kind of you can individually select. The other way to do it is to turn off the synced
Yeah.
up in the top corner. Yeah, but that way is much slower. It's much easier to just hold Option.
Yeah,
I had to
I
look at
that's
my
what I'm saying.
keyboard to see which which one was which.
I do it all the time, and I have a Windows and Mac keyboard, so it has all of the keys on it, which is a little confusing because I also have Control. I have an Alt slash a com like a con it's yeah, it's wild. This keyboard's insane. I used to work Mac and PC simultaneously until very recently, so I have to always look down and go, "What is that button again?" Because I just know where it is on the keyboard. But yeah, that's the way you would do that. I highly suggest learning these hotkeys because, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal to like, oh, I just click up here, turn that off, and then I can click and do what I need and then turn it back on. But that's, maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds, multiply that over 2 weeks. How many times you do it, you could be saving minutes into hours as it adds up with all of these different, tips and tricks that we're going to talk about.
Right on. Well,
Saves
I
you
will
time.
say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, saves you time savings. I'm all about it.
Speaking of time, believe it or not, we are already at the 1 hour mark of what's left.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I know, and we're already learning a lot. So I do want to just kind of give a call out anyone in the chat if you're just joining in. Basically, this whole stream, we're trying to make it a collaborative effort, and we're just going to be talking about all kinds of little tips and maybe lesser known hacks and tricks inside of Premiere for intermediate, advanced, even beginner users, and just kind of yeah, just learning the little ins and outs that myself and Josh have learned over what decades of doing this now and kind of working together.
Yes, it's because we are very old. We're very, very old people. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next? What do we got?
yeah, so let's step away from audio for just a second because I want to show you something that I'm wondering if you know about, Alex. And if you do, you're one of like the four people I think who knew that this was a thing.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
and
All
both
right, here's the test. Does anyone in the chat know this? Josh, you've really set the bar here.
The reason why I say this is both Alex and I are part of this super cool Adobe group, and I messaged the chat asking for tips if there's anybody new, and somebody mentioned this, and like I don't know, 80% of the chat was like, "What? This is incredible." So I'm really curious to see, Alex, if you know what I'm talking.
Yep.
So let me turn this PNG on. So I've got a PNG here on the timeline. A lot of times when I'm editing, particularly corporate stuff, before jumping into After Effects, I will throw something on a timeline, either for timing or just whatever. Just get something on there, get it approved for timing, and then go into After Effects and make it pretty, basically. Um, so in this example, I just have this PNG. Now, in the effects controls here up at the top, you have under motion, position, scale, rotation, and you can keyframe all that stuff, right? Super cool, super useful. We can move this around if we wanted to, and we can animate it, as needed. But for those who may not know, now this one I know Alex knows. If you go to the effects panel and you type in transform, under video distort, there's a transform effect. So we're going to drop that effect on here. Now, if you notice, we get basically all the same stuff, anchor point, position, scale, but there's this really handy one here called shutter angle. What does shutter angle do? Well, let's use the position and scale or position under motion here. So we're going to take our playhead here in the effects panel, and I'm going to put a position keyframe, and then let's move forward a little bit, and I'm going to tap this add remove keyframe button. The reason why I did it that way, if you notice, is I want it to end in the middle, but I want it to start here. So I just kind of went to where I know it was going to end, set a keyframe, go back to, and then now I can, jump back and forth here if I wanted to. Jump back to the beginning. We're just going to throw it off screen for a second, and we'll play back. Ooh, fancy schmancy.
Mhm.
But if you notice, there's no motion blur. It just sort of comes on. It's not very exciting. You can right click, you can temporal interpolation, and you can ease this out, and I can ease it in, and that'll make it a little bit nicer. Ooh,
Oh wow, Josh, your 20 years of video experience really
isn't
showing right here. I'm glad
this
you can bring a graphic from left to right.
incredible, right? But let me turn all these keyframes off. If we go down into transform, we're gonna do the same thing. So we're gonna set a position keyframe, and we're gonna move back to the beginning. And we're just gonna move this off screen. Now, if you notice, because we had already set a keyframe, it automatically added a new keyframe. We hit
Yes,
play.
yeah.
Look at that. Ooh, same thing, right? Okay, well, let's add our ease out, and let's add our ease in. And all right, basically exactly the same thing, right? All right.
Yep.
But if we go to shutter
And
angle,
and really quick, I mean, we are talking about things for kind of all levels here. Really overview kind of picture. What's it ease in? What's it ease out? What does that do?
so it basically changed the animation curve of between these two keyframes. So normally, if it's just a normal keyframe, it's just going to go from 0 to 100 and just move.
Hmm.
If we ease out, it's going to ramp up that speed, and then easing in, it's going to ramp down the speed to a stop. And it's basically you can kind of see it kind of starts, and then it just does a little bit of a slowdown.
Yep.
If we jump into After Effects, we can actually mess with that curve and really dial that in. Fingers crossed that comes into Premiere. Anybody from Adobe who's listening, I would love that to be a thing. Um, but one thing I want to talk about is motion blur.
Yes.
Um, this does not have any motion blur. You see it?
I'm also curious here. I don't know if this is what you're talking about, if how many people know it, but I am really curious to know how many people, just to get a consensus, actually know that there is a form of motion blur in Premiere. So let us know in the
Probably
chat.
not. From my experience, not many. Now, the motion blur is under this shutter angle setting. Now, shutter angle is an old like film camera term. If you use cinema cameras, you know what it is. Uh, Usually you do like 90, 180, 360. It depends on how open it is and how much blur you're going to get. So we're just going to set it to 180, which is kind of in the middle here. And we're going to jump back keyframes again here. There we go. And if you look, ooh, there's now a bit of shutter or a bit of motion blur. Let's make this a little quicker and you can see it a little better.
Bit of shutter blur.
Shutter blur, motion
Keys
blur.
is saying yes. That's whoop, we gotta get some even bigger ones. Keys knew about it. Motion blur galore.
Yep. So super handy if you just need something really simple. You need to add a little bit of motion blur to a graphic. I use this all the time with like basic screen recordings that, corporate stuff where you need it to slide in, you need it to slide out. I don't want to throw that. I don't want to go into After Effects to do that. I just want to do it here. I can do it here super quick, super easy.
Yeah,
Now,
totally agree. Totally agree.
here's the thing that I didn't know until recently that blew my mind. So let's say we have this cool shutter, there's cool animation here. So cool, right? Um, and we want to copy this and paste it to something else. Well, you copy and paste it. See if we can maybe what I'll do, I'll make a new instance of this and maybe change this up a little bit. There we go. So I've copied it on, let's pretend I've copied it onto this new PNG here on the timeline. Well, if you notice, the position is still on. There's keyframes on this clip, but they're not here.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they? If you click back, oh, they're way back here, but I can't see them, right? This
Yeah.
is a very annoying thing
This is
inside of Premiere.
I think I'm gonna learn something right here because and not just on this effect, but like my goodness, this has been something that's driven
Yeah,
me
this
nuts.
is
So I'm
keyframe.
hoping you're gonna surprise me here.
I hope so, because this made my head explode and I like literally shouted when I learned this. So this is across the board. All keyframes will do this. You copy paste an effect like just a quick slide on transition, something like that. And it's not exactly at the start of the clip because it keyframes that position. Well, now it's, like I showed you, it's way over here. If you look at the timeline,
Right.
this position is where it thinks this is. So if we were to click this up and drag this back, you see
Which is what most of us do,
right, you
to
now
fix it.
see those keyframes and you'd highlight the keyframes and you'd move them, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Let me go back real quick. Okay, so we're back on this clip. Where's our keyframes? Well, under effect controls, if we go to this hamburger menu, you ready for this? Go to the hamburger menu, go all the way down, you see pin to clip,
Mm-hmm.
turn that off.
Yep.
Now, if you look at the bottom here of our effects panel, do you see our slider?
Yep.
There's your keyframes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And you can now
Are
highlight,
you
move
kidding
them
me?
onto where they need to be in the
I
clip.
did not know that. And I've been using, I mean, yeah, I've been using this program for decades. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say it right here, right now.
this
Josh
is the
just taught me
thing.
something.
This is the thing I figured you didn't know. And if you did, I was going to congratulate you.
Oh man. That's
Yeah,
wow. That's huge.
bit game changing.
Like if you take nothing else away from this stream for any editor here that does this for a living, like and if you knew it, wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
And I know this did come from kind of like an insider
inside a
group.
group. Yeah,
So yeah, and man, that's huge. I don't more people need to know that. And now more people will.
it
So
will. And
yeah,
if you
we're
like,
already this is the best pro tip. That's awesome. Yeah. It's coming in. Yeah,
Alex,
I don't think people knew that.
yeah, I for sure didn't know this until a few weeks ago. And it has relieved so much frustration in my life. I
I mean,
can,
I don't know if you saw my face when you showed me that. I was just
I can't, I don't have the
like,
feed, so I can't see your
yeah.
face. But real quick, just to show you guys again. So if you go up into effect controls, this little hamburger menu, pin to clip. If pin to clip is on, you see it shows you only the clip, right? Inside of inside of the effects, whatever you call it, the keyframe area. But if you turn that off, it now gives us everything, and we can see the entire clip. And what's nice too, if we move this playhead over, you can see there's a little bit of a differentiation in the grays. It's a little bit darker here and a little lighter here. That's where our
Mhm.
clip ends. So we can still see the end of our clip,
Yes.
right?
Love it.
And we can move our keyframes around. You can position them. You see, we can actually snap it to the beginning there.
Which I could also see you'd want to be careful too on in the reverse instance of that as you move it and it's like on another part of your graphic in a different shot or something. So definitely want to be careful there.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta keep track of it. But this is an incredibly helpful thing to uncheck that will save so much time. Just moving keyframes around if you do a lot of keyframing in Premiere, which I honestly suggest you do because it works, it's good, it's fantastic, and I think more people should use it. But yeah, that is what I wanted to show. I wanted to show motion blur, and I wanted to show that you can use this pin to clip feature to actually find keyframes that have been lost to the ether.
I usually run into that the most when I'm doing time remapping with
Yeah.
keyframes like on the layer. And man, I can't wait to use this.
Yeah, time remapping is a big one because if you see like I've this clip that I just clicked on, I've time remapped. Um, these time remaps can easily go to either side of this clip and they're lost forever. Or you have to like bring the clip up and then drag it way over and find it and move it. And then as you move it, it's making the clip smaller or bigger. Um, and becomes a big pain in the butt. So yeah, hopefully this helps a lot of people. Because it certainly helped me when I saw that this was a thing. Again,
Uh,
that controls hamburger, pin to clip. Write it down.
Oh yeah. Well, so we got about 48 minutes left. I do want to just do some kind of housekeeping really quick. If
Yeah.
you are interested in being on the Adobe live stream, if you got some tips, maybe Keys, sounds like you got some tips. I'm watching the chat over there. If you or someone you know might want to be on the stream, you can recommend a guest. In Behance, there is a tab near the chat in the upper right-hand corner. It says guest recommendations. Also, we'll have our moderators send out a link to that. And then additionally, a lot of people don't know that Adobe has a really cool podcast called In the Making, and they're about to kick off season 2 here. And basically, it's just a great listen. If you like podcasts, go check it out. It's pretty much everywhere: Spotify, Apple, and it's called In the Making. So be sure to check that out. What else we got, Josh?
So one thing I want to show real quick, just because we've been talking about some little hidden things here. By default, Premiere has an undo history of 32 undos. Seems like a lot. I've run into instances often where I will be working on something and then I realize 3 minutes ago I made a huge mistake. And I'm Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, trying to go back, and I can't go back far enough. Has that ever happened to you, Alex?
Yes, and you know what? Man, Josh, I actually love that I'm hosting this stream, hanging out with my buddy here because I am learning things because I didn't know that you could manipulate what you're about. I'm gonna give it away. Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
continue on.
So let me show you how to increase the number of undos within Premiere. So, over here in this panel, if you notice, there is a history panel here, and we have all these things that we've done, right? Now, I have a lot of them because I have mine set pretty high, but at the very, very bottom, the most recent one, if you see, there's this little circle. It's kind of in the bottom corner, so it might be a little hard to see here. But if we right click on that, we can go into settings, and we bring up history settings. Like I said, default, this number will be 32, but used to be 99. Apparently, we can now go to 100. Because only reason why I know that is because I tested this the other day by just doing this, and it set it to 100. So apparently,
Wow.
we can now go to 100. So if you go to 100 and hit OK, you now have 100 history states that you can go back to if you've made a mistake. Additionally, I don't know if many people know or even use this panel, but there is a history panel where you can just look through the things you've done. And if you see something that, oh, that's where I made the mistake, you can just click on it and go back to it immediately.
Yep, love that.
Yeah, so we're going to click back.
Paco, hello, Paco. Good to see you in here. He says he feels seen when keyframing in Premiere. We're bringing out the puns. It's Monday, pun day. Let's go.
Oh, God. Okay. Cool. So I wanted to mention that just because that was one of those things of I didn't really know you could do that. Up to upping the history is always a plus in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
I definitely didn't know you could change the amount of undos. So another thing I'm gonna go in and take advantage of because Control Z is ingrained in my brain. So
yeah, for sure. And the history panel here is so much easier, than just hitting Control Z about 100,000 million times to just go, oh yeah, that's what I want right there. That was the thing I messed up on. Click and go back. Super easy to do. I think this is a panel that's fairly overlooked and not really used very often.
yeah, I
So
gotta say I know it's there and I've seen it before, but I don't use it.
I,
So
I feel like most people don't.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate because it's super handy. Cool. All right. One thing I did want to mention, and this is kind of a a beginner deal, so some of you may know this, some of you may not. But I remember at GoPro, Alex can attest to this. This was a big thing that we used to tell editors all the time. If say you bring in a piece of footage. This is a 1080 timeline, so everything is 1080p. But let's say you bring a piece of footage in and it is 720, or like this was actually shot in 4K. So let me like reset the scale here. That's my buddy Sean. He's gonna
yeah, I love the freeze frame that we're on right here.
say if he sees that. I'm
Hey,
curious what
Sean.
you think. Yeah, that's Sean. He runs a home hunt in Denver, Colorado, and soon to be a bunch of other stuff. He's a great guy. Okay, what was I saying? So if you bring a clip in that's bigger than your actual timeline here, you can right click and you have two options. You have scale to frame size and set to frame size. Um, I personally very, very religiously tell people to never use scale to frame size and to only use set to frame size. What's the difference? Uh,
Yeah, I agree with this one 100%.
let's choose set to frame size and we'll see what happens. So real quick, before we do that, in scale here up in our effect controls, you see it says 100. So we're at 100%. This is a 4K clip, so it's big. We right click and hit set to frame size. It sets it perfectly to 1080. And if you notice, our scale is at 50%, basically. It halved it.
Hmm.
But what that allows us to do is we now still have all this room up to 100 if we wanted to reframe it, if we wanted to do some sort of keyframe animation, whatever in the future. We still have that ability. But let's refresh that or reset that. If we hit scale to frame size, shutter, evil. We hit
And keep an eye on
scale,
that scale up in the
keep
upper
an eye.
left-hand corner.
I legitimately just pointed at my monitors if people could see my hand pointing.
Love it.
Keep an eye on that scale. If I hit scale to frame size, you notice it changes. It changes to 1080, but we're now at 100%. So it has actually taken this 4K clip and made it 1080p. So I can no longer, I mean, I can still scale it up, but I'm going to lose quality.
And you have
Um,
no idea what the original size was.
Correct. So let's refresh that back to 100. And then I'm just going to hit set to frame size. So I wanted to mention that because that's a big one that we at GoPro used to tell people all the time because we would shoot it 1,000 different, aspect ratios and resolutions. And, we wanted to make sure we kept our original quality always. So good tip there. Never use scale to frame size. I actually am not 100% sure why you would ever use scale to frame size. It's got to be like a cache thing or a playback issue, something like that, I would imagine, but I'm not sure. If
Mhm.
anybody knows, let us know because I am really curious as to why that's still there. Very, very curious. All right. Cool. So, really quick, this same clip, I wanted to mention, and I mentioned this when we were talking about audio earlier, and I actually forgot about this really quick. These two clips, I labeled them a different color, which if you're wondering how to do, you right click, hit label, and you can actually label a litany of colors. And you can actually customize these colors up in your settings menu, which I can show you in a minute. But I labeled them a different color specifically because, like I was saying earlier, when I shot this, I have a lapel mic and I have a shotgun mic. And the shotgun goes to one channel, the lapel goes to a different channel. So if you look, you can kind of see it, look closely here at the waveform. The left channel is much higher than this right channel.
Hmm.
And if we solo this clip, I don't know if we'll be able to hear it because we're having some audio um, playback
Yeah, we can
volume.
give it a try. Yeah.
But if you listen, um, the left channel is blown out. Sean's giving his best like Western Miner laugh here, and it is just completely blown out, which
Yeah,
is
it's
why I
very quiet on our end, so we'll take your word for it.
yeah, exactly. It's very, very, very blown out. So
Well, actually, if we were to just out of curiosity put your track mixer back to 0, would we actually be seeing
back
that
is
on the
like
audio mixer?
or -5
Oh,
here.
it is at 0 right now.
Or
Okay.
negative, I would say. Can you
So
hear it?
here, no, not, it's pretty low. But I notice it's not, it looks like it's kind of flattening at the top, but we're obviously not seeing the red
Correct.
peaking on your audio
Yeah,
bar.
so it's this is peaking out here. Every once in a while it's hitting a peak, but if you notice these waveforms are not. Really easy way to fix this because it's a stereo track, but I only want to use this right channel in both channels. That makes sense? We can right click
Mhm.
here and we can click audio channels. And if you notice, we have left and right. Well, if I want to take the left channel, which is currently set to left, but I only want the right channel in both, I can choose right. So right channel will be on the left, right channel will also be on the right. Click OK. And there you go. Now the waveform is set properly. And we have a much better, I can actually lift that up,
Much more even.
laugh without peaking. And this is the same thing here, except it's the opposite in this clip. Go back to audio channels. I want left in both sides because the right was a little too quiet.
Yeah, and the reason for doing that, I think, kind of like you mentioned, is if you have a lapel mic and a shotgun mic, both plugged into a camera, but it's only making one audio track, but you got two different channels, you can
Right.
switch back and forth.
Yeah.
Also, I know a lot of people here are probably familiar with like the DJI mic or the Rode Wireless Pros.
Correct. Yeah.
A lot of those you can set it up to record, the typical level on one channel, and then the second channel is like a safety channel that's much
Right.
lower that you can adjust. So this is a great way to kind of be able to manipulate those audio channels.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of footage like this, doing a lot of corporate work or things like that, where, you've got shooters out in the field using those, like I said, those DJI, those Rode mics and a DSLR or something like that. You'll get a lot of footage like this where, it's just one track, one stereo track with two different audio sources. And that's how you do it. And you can do it here on the timeline, or you can actually go into the clip in the bin, right click, and actually change the whole clip that way as well. So if you got a batch of them, you can just highlight them all and just do it pretty quickly. Real quick, because I messed with it here. This little bar in the middle is an audio bar. If you notice, if you click and drag it, I can lift it up and down, raise and lower the level, the volume here. But on your keyboard, the bracket, left and right bracket. So right bracket, if you tap it, will go up with audio. Left bracket, if you tap it, will go down. Just in case people didn't know
Hmm,
that, another keyboard shortcut.
keyboards.
Make sure you learn them. Learn your shortcuts. Definitely will speed up your workflow. Additionally, one more I just thought of, and I mentioned this on a live stream last year with James, and he went, "What?" Um, so minus and plus will zoom in and zoom out of your timeline, correct? Well, let's say I need to get to the front of the timeline or a portion at the front of the timeline, and I don't want to like zoom out real quick. If you hit the forward slash button, it will show your entire timeline. And then I can move to like, oh, I want to move here to this lovely gentleman. And then if I hit that forward slash button again, it will just reset back to my previous zoom level.
Oh, that is kind of nice. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Man, what a
Yeah.
great. We need to like bookmark these and put them out there in the world. These are great tips. And also, Keys, I see you over in the chat on Behance. Still wondering whether you should mention the grayed out audio settings for sequences. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but if you care to elaborate, we would love to kind of, make this collaborative and we can dive into it together.
Grayed out
So
audio.
let us know what you mean by that.
Oh, does he mean if you right click and hit sequence settings, does he mean these grayed out channel formats? Is that what he's talking about?
Um, I'm not sure. We'll give it a few minutes, see if we get some follow up on that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the one little tip though with this forward slash zoom, snap zoom and out deal is, let's say we're at this zoom level, we zoom out and we come over here, and I forget I can hit forward slash and I just zoom in one. That will reset your zoom level. So if you
Love
notice,
that.
I can go full timeline or just one zoom in. So if you are working at a specific, really close and you want to just zoom out real quick and zoom back in, just hit the forward slash. If you change that zoom level once you've gone out to a full timeline view, it will reset. the zoom level you were previously at. Does that make
I
sense?
like that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love that.
Cool.
I had
Uh,
to look down on my keyboard and be like, okay, which one's forward slash, which one was backslash?
yeah, forwards, it's the one like right
Oh
next.
no, I know. I didn't know which one was which in my mind.
Yeah, I'm constantly doing that. And then the last audio tip actually that I just remembered, and this was one, Alex, you mentioned in a stream I was on, and I had forgotten it was there, is that under where this ripple edit tool is, if you click and hold, there is a remix tool. So instead of going into the audio settings here, if we go up into our workspaces and we choose audio and then go into music, remix, there's just a tool for this. You can then just click and drag your audio and Premiere will remix that audio or
And
music
it
for
automatically pops up that essential sound panel.
you. Right. No, much
Let's see
quicker.
here. Keys is saying, so the channel format is grayed out for existing sequences. When creating a new sequence, make sure to check your settings as Premiere may remember your last preset, possibly as a different one. Yes. So basically, I think the idea there is make sure that you are confirming what it is actually set at, so Premiere doesn't by default kind of move it to a different preset when you create a new one.
Got it. Yep, makes sense. Uh,
If I'm misunderstanding that, Keys, let me know.
for sure. And then I guess real quick, I want to show if we go into export here, I wanted to show. So if we go into format and we choose QuickTime, I want to show you how we export those stereo channels real quick. I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but
Yeah, that's actually really good. So, if anyone's just joining us, we spent the first maybe 10, 15 minutes talking about how to map different audio channels when you create a new sequence. So, this will be archived on Behance and YouTube. So, if you missed it, rewind to the beginning. Josh, real quick, show us how you would export those to actually get that to come out, because that's probably one of the more important steps
yeah,
that
probably
we
just make
overlooked a
sense
little bit.
to show it without showing you how to export it. So I'm gonna change. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. We can leave that at 444 for now.
But
So
it does have to be,
has to be
ProRes or a format that supports multi-channel audio.
correct. I believe it's QuickTime and MXF both support it. I believe.
Same with like .ts files if you're doing broadcast work or that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Okay, so here under audio, if you notice, so when you go to export, it's probably going to be here on the video codec. We'll just choose 422 for real quick. But if you flip down the audio settings, you'll notice down here, this is probably not showing. It probably just says more under basic audio settings. So you've got your sample rate and your sample size. If you click more, you'll get audio channel configuration. So right now, it's only going to output a stereo channel of channels 1 and 2, which if you remember what we set up, channels 1 and 2 is our master main mix. So if we want
And
other,
if you leave it like that, people are going to come back and say, Josh, you didn't know what you were talking about at the beginning. So make sure to map this correctly.
right, exactly. So if we hit plus, if you see mono is just 3 and 3, well, we want a stereo channel. And now we're getting channels 3 and 4, which we've set up as our dialogue or our VO. In this case, it's the camera's audio.
Mhm.
Track and hit stereo. And now we're at 5, 6, which we set up as music. Hit plus
And
again.
if you forgot, sometimes if when I'm doing that initial setup on the sequence, I'll sometimes just write it down on a little sheet of paper, like what
Yeah,
channel is
exactly.
what,
And
so you remember
you can
everything
always go
if you
back
don't know.
here, edit. And like I said, I have this set up as submixes. So, this submix one, we can just relabel this as cam. We'll label this as music, and we'll relabel this as sound effects so that we know what they are. Oh, that did not save. Hey, why are we not saving? Thank you.
Mondays.
Monday did. Okay. Hey, wait a second. All right, I give up. So 1 and 2, if you notice, this is the cams. We have 1 and 2 is our main mix. So this submix is being routed to channels 1 and 2 and channels 3 and 4.
Mhm.
Music's being routed to channels 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. And the SFX is being routed to channels 1 and 2 and 7 and 8. We have 3 channels of sound effects, 1, 2, and 3. And they're all being routed to the SFX submix here. So that's how this is set up, right? These 3 channels route to this one channel then routes to these 2 sets of channels. Does that make sense? And so when we
I'm following you.
cool. And so when we export these source channels, we're going to get that file that I showed earlier. Let me move over here. That I showed earlier. That's going to have all those different channels of audio,
Yep. All attached to that one file,
all
so you don't
attached
have
as
to
one
bring
file.
those in individually.
Correct, which makes this a pretty nice archival file, in my opinion. It's mainly what I use this for. So I'll do like a master ProRes 444 422 archive file that, allows me to not have to keep a bunch of raw footage or anything like that for projects that just don't need all that stuff being kept. And it gives me stems, it gives me the video, it gives me everything in just one clean, simple file.
And let's hop back over to that export window real quick so people can
Yep.
see that again. Just what specific boxes you're checking and what you're changing here. So if you're not able to select that audio channel configuration, it probably means you're in a format that doesn't support it. So try something like QuickTime
So if we
ProRes.
go into H.264, you'll notice under audio, we don't have any of those settings.
Exactly.
But under QuickTime, we do. And I clicked
Yep.
away.
And all you had to do there was add those additional tracks with a little plus
Correct.
button.
So, like I said, it'll probably look like this. So probably if you don't click more, you're going to be going, "What are they talking about? These guys are crazy." If you click more, there it is, and you can just add as many tracks as you want, and as many types of tracks as you want.
Oh man, we're learning so much.
Easy
We
peasy.
got we got a lot of things happening here. I love this stream.
Like I said,
Let
we're
us
going to
know
bounce around.
in the chat if there's anything, any tips that you have that you like that you think we may not know or others may not know. Feel free to share them.
Yeah.
I love learning from other people, and that's why we're here.
If it's as good as that pin to let me go back
Yeah,
to
if you can top that one, I'll be
clip.
impressed.
Pin to clip, dude. That is the best thing I've learned in like the last 2 years in Premiere. Like it's a simple thing, but it is incredible. Um, cool. Okay, so let's jump into a color really quick because I wanted to show a super easy way to do a bit of color inside of Premiere. And the reason why I want to show this is I'm kind of gearing all of these tips towards the way I see a lot of corporate stuff being shot. I know, especially younger editors and things, corporate work is going to be where you're making your money. It's where you're going to cut your teeth. So if you're doing a lot of that work now, you might be getting a lot of footage like this. And so I wanted to show some tips specifically for that. So this is one of them here. Um, so real quick, let me move this clip out of the way. So this is a raw clip. If you notice, it's colored here, right? Um,
Hmm.
this clip is not same clip. This is a Sony. What was the shot on? A Sony A7S III, I believe. And it was all shot in S-Log3 and S-Cine Gamut. So easy way to fix this. If you notice, this looks pretty flat. Here, let's make this a little bigger here. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So this shot looks pretty flat. It's shot in a log profile. Not a lot of contrast, nothing going on. Well, we could, if we jump into the color panel, we could sit here and we could, go into curves and start messing with curves and, bring up our scopes and things. But before you do any of that stuff, um, you really should do what's called a color convert. And let me explain what that is. Basically, you can override the media color space from Rec 709, which is what Premiere is seeing this clip as, which is why it's showing it as it was shot. You can override it with this little button here. So if you go in the Lumetri color panel, you hit Settings, under Source Clip, Override Media Color Space, currently set to Rec 709. I know this was shot Sony S-Log3 S Gamma 3 Cine, right?
And
Click.
so that's why we would do that, because I think a lot of people would be asking, okay, it's Rec 709, but why would I want to change it?
Right.
And it's because you know that when you shot that, it was in a specific format.
Correct. Good example of this. Alex shot some interviews. This is some like insider baseball stuff. Alex shot some interviews
I was like, what?
recently that I was editing. And I
Didn't
needed
even know.
what he shot at. He shot it in Canon log, and that allowed me to just super quickly fix the color. So anyway, this is how you would do this, and this is a really good starting point to be able to just super quickly get your contrast right, get the black levels correct. If you notice, we go back to Rec 709 and we look at our scopes, you see the blacks are not being crushed. There's not a lot of highlights here, but if we drop this back in, boom, our blacks are where they should be. Everything is being stretched out to the top up here. See these highlights are not clipping, and then you can go in and add whatever look you want using any of the Lumetri color
Now,
controls.
what would you recommend in the case that we had mixed footage? Say you shot some of it there, and maybe some of it you got footage from maybe Canon log.
Well, I mean, you
What's
can go
your
in. So you can go
how
in
would
and
you work through that there? Or is
it
this
depends
by
on
clip?
yeah, I mean, you can go by clips, so that's what this is, right? So if like this was a Canon shot, you could go in here, and if you knew, oh, this was Canon log 3,
Hmm.
I would go in and change that and just set the media color space to be whatever it was shot at, so that Premiere understands, oh, okay, that's what it was shot at. I know what log curve to add to this to make it correct.
Perfect. Yeah.
Um,
So just make sure if you have, multiple camera types or color logs in there, just
yeah,
put the right one to each clip.
yeah, and you can also do this in the bin. So if we go under raw, see where is this stuff? Is Reichland here. So you can actually right click on this, hit modify, and go into color, and you can actually do it here as
Yeah, and that's the way I typically know to do it. I actually didn't know that you could do it in the settings on Lumetri, so
yep.
that's actually pretty cool. I like that.
Classic Premiere. You have
A little bit more a little simpler.
yeah, it's very classic Premiere. You have multiple places to do one thing. Uh,
And in fairness, I mean, things are changing and updating constantly, so it's hard to keep up with all the new things that are coming
oh
in.
yeah, it's insane.
And if you are interested in new things coming up, I'll talk more about it later. But after this stream, we have another really cool stream coming up with some of the I'm going to get their title wrong, the product supervising team. And they're talking about beta features and all that sort of stuff. So it'd be great
Nice,
afterwards for anyone who has suggestions or that sort of stuff or just wants to hear what's new and coming up. That'll be after this stream. So
super cool.
when we're done here, be sure to stick around. And speaking of done here, we got like another 25 minutes or so, Josh.
Yeah, dude. So real quick, speaking of color, I wanted to show a clip shot on red. So this is a shot. Looks great, right? I was shooting a commercial out in the desert with these Baja racers. These crazy things. Um, all done on a red V Raptor and red log, all that stuff. If you ever get log or raw footage, Blackmagic RAW, ProRes RAW, Red RAW, whatever it is, there's a really easy way to modify and work with that footage inside of Premiere. Um, I know raw footage is becoming much more popular. I get B-RAW all the time for stuff that I'm editing. In your clip, so if we double click our clip and we bring it up to the source monitor here, under the effect controls, you'll see you have this thing that says source. This will give you all of your raw data and your raw controls inside of Premiere to be able to modify that clip as necessary. So you can change your tone mapping, you can change the gamma space, you can change your ISO, your curves, all kinds of stuff is inside of this source clip here, or source
Hmm.
setting. If this was on the timeline, just drop this on the timeline real quick. Um, which this is set to frame size. This is shot at 7K. So here, let me just gotta bring that up. There we go. If you click on this, you're gonna notice your effect controls doesn't show the same screen. That's because we're currently in timeline. So that gives us our like motion, our opacity, timer mapping, all those tools. But if you click over here, just right next to it, you'll still see it says source. You can click that and you can get back to those raw settings as needed.
Yeah, and obviously, like that's the reason you want to shoot raw most of the time, so you can change white balance, any of that stuff, just like in a photo.
Exactly, exactly. So I wanted to mention that just really quick because I've been getting a lot of raw footage this past year versus other years. So it's people are shooting a lot more raw, particularly with the ease of ProRes RAW on those like Atomos recorders, B RAW, and then with the new Red Komodo and a lot of shooters using that now. You might get some raw in your workflows. So I wanted to mention that as when we talked about color. There we go, raw. We did it. Um,
Did it.
cool. All right, let's jump back into this edit here. I want to talk about dynamic link real quick because we were going to talk about it. So this little comp here is dynamically linked into After Effects. It's an AE file. It's actually this as an Illustrator file inside of After Effects. If you didn't know, you can natively bring Illustrator files into After Effects. You can actually natively bring them into Premiere as well. But to my knowledge, you don't get the same level of control. So like I can actually show you this here. Let me disable this clip. This is the AI file here inside of Premiere. Now in After Effects, if I was to scale this AI file, it goes away. It's like the quality goes away. It's not
Yeah, it's not rasterized, so it won't continuously
uh,
scale without losing
right.
quality inside
In
of Premiere, right?
in After Effects, it does that. So
Correct.
I don't suggest messing with these files in here unless it's a properly sized comp or something like that. So real quick, inside of After Effects, we can dynamically link content between Premiere and After Effects. Sometimes that content will play back horribly. This is currently rendered, in my system. I'm running an M2, fully tricked out, so this plays back usually pretty flawlessly. If you are having issues, you can always just right click and render and replace this clip with some other type of media, whatever you would choose, either 422 file, whatever it is. Choose the location where you want to put it. If you want handles on it, that sort of thing, hit OK, and it will render this as that file, which will make playback super easy.
Mhm.
But let's say you need to then make a change to that After Effects file. Well, you already rendered it, so you can always just open it up in After Effects, then re-export it, then re-import it back into Premiere. But that sort of negates dynamic linking and how cool dynamic linking is. And I do a ton of projects with dynamic linking literally every day. If dynamic link didn't work, my workflow would be shattered. Um, Easiest way to bring that back is after you've rendered it. If you hit this, it's currently grayed out, but if you hit this restore unrendered, it'll actually bring the dynamic linked After Effects comp back into Premiere. And then you can just hit Command E and it will jump you into After Effects and open that particular comp automatically. Um,
Boom.
yeah, it's a little shortcut, but you can then make a change to here. Like, I don't know, let's say I wanted to change out, oh gosh, I don't know, the glow from being purple to green. There we go. And then if I go back into Premiere, there you go, it's updated, it's now green. And then if, I want to export this out, I can then just go ahead and right click, render and replace. I find it to be a good workflow habit to any dynamically linked comps, render and replace them before you do your final export. Sometimes there's a weird quality issue when you do your final export. Most of the time it's fine. But if it's like a final file for a client, I will render and replace all my dynamically linked comps inside of Premiere with a QuickTime file, like a 422
I'm
file.
so glad you mentioned that, Josh, because I was gonna kind of tack that on at the end, and I'll take that even one step further in what I like to do. Um, because sometimes when you media manage things and send them off, and someone comes back to the project a year later, they may not have that After Effects file. So I'll definitely do that render and replace and leave that rendered version in there. I like to actually duplicate um, that dynamic link right above and then just
Yeah,
render the
that's good.
top one and leave the other one the same because, as programs change and everything, that may not relink properly.
True.
But that way in the future, for me, when I media manage things, I always kind of duplicate it so people don't have to go back and re-render everything because they may not have all the same, effects if there's like, Max on or Red Giant or something in there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, Alex, did you know that you can actually media manage projects inside of After Effects?
I did. Yes, I actually, I probably would like to someday do an entire session on media management. Um,
Yeah. For
yeah,
those who
I
don't
have some
know,
big tips for that. Yeah.
so you can go in After Effects, Files, Dependencies, Collect Files, and it will, I need to save the project, but you can actually collect all of the files into its own folder, and then that folder, excuse me, you can zip it and ship that off to somebody to work on if you needed to, media manage some sort of After Effects project.
Yeah, it's really handy to just like you can tell it to grab, only using stuff that's in the project. So, maybe if you built out a project and you're only using 5 shots of 120 photos or something that's in there,
Exactly.
that you don't need to send all of those over to the client.
Yeah. And then if anyone was curious, this is just fractal noise with a glow on it. This is all inside of After Effects. Super easy effects.
Uh, Also, Josh, so we talked about a little bit in Premiere how it doesn't necessarily rasterize that Illustrator, but back over in After
Oh
Effects
yeah.
there, are you familiar with the rasterize button? So because you can actually, I think it's on by default, but sometimes it's not on layers that are vector layers.
Yeah, so this
So just
when I normally bring this in, this is off. Um, so yeah, I see like here's the AI file. So this little starry thing we highlighted says continuously rasterize. If you turn that on, so if you turn it off, look, you can see how
Yeah, you can see the quality
bad
change.
the Illustrator file looks. But if I turn that on, it's now completely re-rasterizing continuously those vector points on this graphic. And I can go into here and zoom this to my heart's content. And
Yeah, because it's a vector, it's all based off of shape layers, basically.
exactly. So yeah, that's this little star. Because I'm assuming it's a star. I've always thought it was a star icon.
Works
Cool.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, let me look at my notes here. 'Cause we got a whole bunch of other stuff going on.
Yeah, and we got about so that we got 15 minutes or so left in the last maybe 6 minutes or so. We'll kind of do a recap. So
Yeah, for
I'd
sure.
say you got maybe about 10 minutes or so
Cool.
just in there.
One really quick one that I wanted to mention that I don't know if a lot of people use inside of Premiere or not. In After Effects, let me jump into After Effects. You're probably familiar with rulers, right? Being able to very easily put something right here if you wanted to, and hitting what is it, Command semicolon to turn them on and off.
Hmm.
Okay. Did you know you can do that inside of Premiere? It's a handy tool that I've used recently. I have it set here in my buttons area here. If you hit the plus, you can actually add more buttons as you use them. You just click and drag them onto this area. But you can actually turn rulers on and off in your program monitor and bring them out if you needed to for whatever reason, and you can turn
No,
them
I
on
use it all the time. Yeah.
by hitting command semicolon as well. It's super handy. It's just one of those little hidden things that's not up here by default that is really, really handy, at least for doing screen recordings and having to line them up with other things, all the time. It's super duper handy. So I wanted to mention that really quick.
And since we're looking at those buttons, what other buttons do you have there? So you got, I see a proxy button. Do you use the like reference frame for like coloring or any of that? I'm just curious what you
Yeah,
prefer
I
to
don't.
have
So
on there and what's available.
a lot of this is just default or it's stuff that I've thrown on randomly. Comparison view is pretty nice to compare to something else. If it was like, oh, I want to compare, this frame to whatever, this frame for color, and I wanted to, do something like that. That's pretty handy. The one I honestly use more than anything else is export frame.
Yeah.
I am constantly exporting, frames for thumbnails on social or, wanting to take a picture of something and just, I don't know, manipulate it for some weird reason or send it to a client without taking a screen capture and like sending it, that way. I want a nice high quality uh,
Yeah,
picture.
export that frame, bring it into Adobe Express and make your thumbnail. Done.
Exactly. Loop playback is super handy. Safe margins, extremely handy. Safe margins is great, if only just to see the center points. You can do safe margins and one of these and just bring some center and go, okay, cool. That is roughly where the center is, right there. Cool, awesome. There's all kinds of these little hidden things that are super handy to use. Let me turn those off. There's one thing I wanted to mention. I just need to look at my notes here. Yeah, so there's a thing that this is a kind of like this feature here, the pin to clip, that I turned on recently, and I went, God, I wish I would have known this earlier. It's called direct manipulation. Have you ever used this, Alex?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Okay,
Are you,
so
is everyone ready to get their minds blown again?
so
What do we got here?
I'm
Direct
gonna
manipulation.
bring up the keyboard shortcuts here. So the way I did that really quick was on Mac, I hit Option Command K. And if you just search, what was it again? I have it written down here. Uh, uh, direct. Yeah, so activate direct manipulation in Program Monitor. That's the full name of this, right? I set it to Command 2, set it
Mhm.
to whatever you want. Hit OK. So let's say like, okay, I want to take the position, whatever. It's already on. So I've already turned this thing on. But if you were to click a clip and then I have it set to Command 2, hit Command 2. If you look at the program monitor, we now have
Our wireframe.
wireframes and we can click and move stuff around directly in the program monitor.
without having to click on the
without having
motion
to click
button.
on this and then, yeah, or do this, whatever, and scale it. You can
Well, the
just,
other way to get that to come up too, if that's off, is yeah, if you just select any clip and then you actually click on where it says motion, it'll bring up that wireframe.
yeah. So
But
I
yeah.
find it super handy to just click and have it sourced like that.
Yeah, I
Sure.
did not know. I love that. That could be just on by default.
Super, super handy, super nice just to be like, oh, no, I want this to be closer to this cloud. Whatever,
I,
whatever you would want to do.
and I'll say too, years ago, I mean, this is probably back in like 2012. I obviously came from another program before I was working in Premiere, and then switched over to Premiere probably in like 2012. And one of the things it took me so long to figure out was like, how do I just click and drag the image? And
Yeah,
just knowing that you hit the motion, and because in a lot of programs you just click it and you can kind of move it.
correct. Well, like
That's a
right here,
great little tip.
put the playhead over, you're clicking the program monitor. Well, I double clicked it. Well, like clicking that doesn't work. Okay, well, if I click here and click here, that doesn't work. Oh, if I click motion, well, that turns on. So just
Exactly.
I mapped it to option two. Now I have option one mapped to something as well, and I want to show you what that is. So there is a setting that's called assign. It's basically moving the playhead to your cursor. Did you know you can assign a shortcut for this? So
Not
you want
sure.
to go over here, well, you click the cursor or you click up here in the timeline, whatever. Well, if your cursor's here, I have it set to command one, so I just go command one. Move the cursor over here, command one. Super fast, super easy.
Interesting. Okay. This is why I like watching other people's workflows. Like I guess for those people who really work directly off the keyboard,
Yeah, I'm
because
very
I'm like, oh, I would just click.
exactly. Well, yeah, you would just go up here and click, go up here and click, go up here and click, go up here and click. There have been several times, I don't know, Alex, if this is your case, where I'm on like a 12-hour edit and I'll go up here and click and I've got 15 sequences open and all of a sudden I've gone up here and clicked and now I'm like, wait, where did it go? Oh, it's okay, it's over here. Because I've clicked too high, slightly too high if there's like a bunch of sequences here. So this just sort of saves me that trouble. I don't have to drag it around. Super cool.
Gotcha.
Super
Love
easy
it.
keyboard shortcut. Yeah, that was one of those like I don't know, just these little things that I've shortcutted that have been super handy. Anything to speed up workflow, basically, is
Yeah, I mean this
wow.
whole stream has been full of great tips, and I know I mean I've been in this program for a long time, and I love that and to let it be you to teach me something new, just because you're a good friend of mine. This is great.
Yeah,
Um, do we
cool.
have time for like one more quick tip, or should
Sure.
we could also just recap everything we've kind of gone through and
Well, I do want
that
to
kind of
mention
stuff?
one thing. I don't want to get into it because there's a lot of really good content on it, and it would take a while to get into it. But I do want to mention productions, and if anybody uses productions or doesn't use productions, I think you should look into it. I know recently, Alex, I think you and I talked about this, that I basically everything I do is now an Adobe production instead of just a project. And I just want to quickly talk about why I do that. Biggest reason why is I do a lot of episodic stuff for corporations and things like that, where it's one of 10 videos. And if those videos are all individual projects, sharing media and sharing things between them can get a little tedious. Productions, especially when you're working with multiple editors, Fableland, we have multiple editors all accessing private VPNs, and they'll access those same projects all up in the cloud at the same time. If you notice, I opened up the productions panel here on the left, and this project that we're in here is this one here. Anything I do in this project panel, if I add a folder or whatever, it will actually mirror that in on the hard drive that this project is on. So if I create a folder, it's going to create a folder on the hard drive. Does that make sense? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if I was to create a new project here, we can just do Adobe test, blah, blah, bam. Now I have this project here. I can share media back and forth between this project and this new project. So if we'll just really quickly, we'll just throw a new sequence on here. I'm not even going to bother with it. But let's say on this sequence, I wanted these clips. I can copy them, go to the sequence and paste. Now, there's one big difference that you probably will notice that just happened versus having two projects open at the same time. If I was to copy footage from one project to another, it will also copy that media into that project, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at our project panel here for the Adobe test, there's no media. Yet the sequence has media. If I click F to bring that media, the source clip back up into the source monitor, I have full access to that clip. And I can create a new in and a new out point and bring that media down, even though that media does not exist in the project. All of that media is being held in our original project.
Production.
Or sorry, no, in the original project of this Adobe thing
Oh,
that's
yeah.
inside of the
Yeah.
production. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Um, there's a lot of reasons to use projects. This is a big one. If like you've got a bunch of raw footage, you can have one project that's all the raw footage that has selects broken out, and then a bunch of individual projects that are all versions of that particular that edit, and but none of that media is inside of that project. It also remains in one area, completely isolated and organized. Additionally, if you add too many sequences into one project in Premiere, it can lag it down a little bit. So
Yep.
having multiple projects, so I'll usually do up to maybe a V6, V7 sequence wise, like 7 or 8 sequences in one project. And then I'll just duplicate that project or I'll create a new project and then that'll be V8 through V12, whatever. But because it's referencing all the footage from the other project, it's just more organized and speeds up my workflow a bit. Uh,
Absolutely.
anyway, just
Great
I wanted
tips.
to mention that.
Yeah,
Wanted to
I
mention.
love it. So I think we're at the point of the show now, and keys. Yeah, I wasn't referring to a specific program, but yeah, I've used Nuke and others way back in the day, and yeah, I think that was just a little tip for moving around the window. That when I first came into Premiere, I was like, "How do you do this?" And then as soon as you know it, you're like, "Oh, that's really easy."
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, as we kind of wind down here, Josh, you've taught us so much. You definitely taught me some things. We have talked about how to submap audio channels. We've talked about the mind blower, which you know what, Josh, why don't you give a quick like little 1 minute highlight of the quick tips you went through?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So let me bring up the mixer. Actually, we're in the wrong project here. Let's bring were we in the right sequence? Yeah, we are. Where did we
Yeah,
go?
and I'd say since we are
There we
starting to
are.
run low on time, like yeah, give me like a minute, minute and a half.
Sure. So, I mean, the one that took the most time was just mapping audio channels so that you can have super fast stem exports, basically. Um, and the way we did that was in under creating a new sequence. You can go into tracks. And then you can change your mix from stereo to multi-channel, choose the amount of channels that you want to have, and then under output assignments, you can actually assign different channels or different tracks to different channels of audio. Um, I always use 1 and 2 as a master, and then I can have 3 and 4 be, VO, and then I can have 5 and 6 be whatever music, and then 7 and 8 be sound effects, which is what I'm going to hit cancel here, which is what I did in
Totally.
this sequence. And then these have an additional layer where they're all mapped to 3 submix channels. And that basically allows me to, instead of like if I needed to bring all my sound effects down in audio, I have 3 tracks of sound effects. So I could go 1, 2, and 3, but I've mapped them all to this one submix. I can just bring that submix down if I wanted to.
Correct.
And then that
And
submix is mapped to channel
and
7.
then we would yeah just adjust our export settings for that. And I don't want you to go into all the details. I
Yeah.
just really quick each topic since we are about out of time.
No, that was a
um
big one. The other big one, which I will
yeah,
go over just for time rise, is pin to clip. So that allows us. Let me turn it off because then you get the full effect when it's on, when it's checked on. So here, if you notice, we have these 2 keyframes. Well, if I was to shorten this clip, those keyframes go away. Where'd they go? They're not gone. They're still there because we click position and we go back. They're just over here in the ether of this clip. But if we go up here to the effect controls, hamburger, turn off pin to clip, we now get access to anything beyond the boundaries of this clip. And I can click and drag those keyframes
and I think
right
that is probably my favorite tip that we've gotten here. There's definitely a lot more. Feel free to go back in the stream as well and check out all the tips. We talked about a whole bunch of just little things that are
there.
great. And Josh, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to be sure to let everyone know where to find your work, where to follow up with you. So we got Josh's website, which we can have the
Bam.
moderators send out, and it is fableland.studio. And then also you can give him a follow on Instagram over at officialjquillin. While you're there, also be sure to follow Adobe Live at Adobe Live and subscribe on YouTube. Check out the podcast we got going on in the making. Josh, it was super fun having you here. I'm so glad that you were able to be here and share all these tips. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, man. No, this is great. I'm glad you were hosting. It's like two editing friends just having a chat. We've known each
Yeah,
other
I
for so
mean, this
long.
is actually a lot of fun and we can kind of bounce ideas back and forth. And we do have more coming up. Be sure to stick around. So the next thing we got coming up is beta news, which, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is where Adobe principal product managers are going to hop in the chat with you guys and talk about new features that are coming up and get your feedback on things. And you can find out what to expect.
Nice.
Man, this was super fun. Josh, thanks for being here.
Yeah, dude.
And we'll see you on the next stream.
Yeah, or at NAB. If anybody's going to NAB, wave and say hi.
There it is. Yeah,
I'll be there on
NAB.
Monday. I'll be hanging out at the Adobe booth a little bit on Monday.
All right. Thanks so much, Josh. Thanks
Hey
everyone for
guys.
watching.